With this first Sunday of Advent. And as we did last Sunday, as we brought the church's year to a close, and we had a gospel about the end times, so today we have another gospel pointing to the second coming. And that's because Advent is supposed to do two things. Number one, remind us that Jesus is coming again. And number two, to prepare us to celebrate his birth. We spend most of our energy on the latter because that's the thing we know. We don't think too much about the former, precisely because we don't know anything about it. And we hear a gospel today, and it can be very confusing because Jesus says, only the Father knows. I don't know. Nobody else knows except for the Father. The scripture scholars say that one of the reasons why that line gets into the gospel is because by the time Matthew wrote the gospel, which was 30 or so years after Jesus had ascended into heaven, after his death and resurrection, the early community was now in its second generation of believers. The first generation had heard all that Jesus said and was wondering where this second coming was. Why was it delayed? Now the second generation was there and wondering why he hadn't come back yet. Some people were beginning to doubt that he ever would come back again. Some people were wondering if they had believed in vain. But they are reassured that, only the Father knows. There are going to be certain things that will happen. But you are ultimately going to be saved by your faith. But you have to be prepared. And so preparation is more or less the theme. Being ready, staying awake. And what do we stay awake for? We stay awake so that we can see God acting in our life now. And we can see God acting in the world now. That we come back again and again to the fact that God is with us. That just because we prepare to celebrate Christmas, it doesn't mean that Jesus isn't here already, that he isn't present through his church, in his word, in all of us who believe, and in his sacraments. It doesn't mean that he isn't with us. What it is a reminder of how we need to, every year, really every day, pray for the grace of seeing his presence and his action in our lives and in the world around us without giving in to fear, without giving in to despair. How much anxiety is there in the world right now because of the soon-to-come change in administration in this country? How many of our own people are scared and wondering? How many are hoping that the recounts that are going to go on are going to change reality? So whether, we get all hung up in that, and other people in the world are anxious because of what it might mean for them, like Jack mentioned this morning, that people in Lithuania are very concerned about what might happen before Inauguration Day, because they don't trust the Russians very much, and relationship between Mr. Trump and Vladimir Putin. But aside from that political stuff, it's just that kind of fear that people have. In the early church, when they began to doubt whether they had really believed truly or not, because Jesus wasn't coming, St. Paul had to handle the same issues. And even today, 20 centuries later, we're still waiting. But what Jesus said to them is still true for us. Be prepared. stay awake. You don't know the day that your Lord will come. For many of us, that staying awake or being aware has more to do with our own immediate end than the end of the world. You know, how many people all of a sudden collapse, die unexpectedly, and they're not prepared for the end of their life because they never really gave it too much serious thought. Or they just took for granted that, that what their doctor told them was true. How many funerals I've had for people who suddenly die, and they're not that old, younger than I am, and, everything was fine. And so often there are people who are, they're not religious, but they're spiritual kinds of people. So for you and me, I think it's that awareness that's important for us to continue to cultivate. Why it's so important for us to pray every day. Not out of fear that, we're going to, as they say in Spanish, wake up dead tomorrow. But because we want to know this God and Lord of ours. We want to know him more deeply. We want to know him more truly. Advent is an invitation to us to, in the midst of everything else that we have to do, to try one more thing. To carve out that little tiny bit of time that we give to the Lord and to the Lord alone. We take that little bit of time, whether we use the bulletin to read one of the lessons from this particular Advent Sunday, or if we have the prayer book at home, to take a few minutes by using one of the prayers, or looking at the daily devotions for families that are real scaled down parts of the daily office. Or, if you have a particular spiritual book or something that you read that inspires you, that you would take just a few minutes out of your day, 5 minutes, let's say. You can extend it, but try it with 5. And spend some time with that passage, with that prayer, with that order of prayer, or even in silence. And ask the Lord in that moment, those moments that you spend, to help you see how he is active in your life right now. How he has led you and guided you. Or how he might seem to be absent from doing anything in your life right now. Maybe you've been praying like mad for somebody or for something, and nothing has happened that you're aware of. And you can pour out your heart in that time with the Lord and ask for him to help you realize why it is that maybe this hasn't happened yet. Or to give you the patience to wait for this thing to happen. The people of God prayed for centuries for the coming of the Messiah. They waited, they hoped, they were disappointed so many different times. And they suffered in all of that time, wondering whether they had made a mistake or not. But eventually the Messiah came. But because many of them were unable to recognize Jesus, because their minds and their hearts had been closed to only what they thought God was going to do, they rejected him. They let the opportunity slip through their fingers. And so we don't want to miss the Lord's visitation. We don't want to miss when he does act in our lives or around us. And perhaps in that little discipline of prayer, when something comes clearly into your mind, when you realize that, how God answered a prayer, or how, his hand has been guiding you or leading you, that's the moment for you to say thank you and to ask for that ongoing awareness so that you can be thankful every day for the love of God, for the presence of the Lord, for his love enacted in your own individual life. And so this morning, in this Eucharist, Jesus once again comes to us. He comes because he chooses to. We come here because we have chosen to. And that encounter in communion in particular can become a moment of real encounter. I mean, really meeting him. And maybe really for the first time in a long time, or maybe ever, acknowledging that in that moment we are as close to God as we can ever be. He in us and we in him. And that we can be grateful for that. Grateful that we can come here, that we can have that kind of an encounter, and that we have a God who is faithful and loving and patient and compassionate and kind and forgiving and understanding, that continues to call you and me to grow more and more like himself, so that the world that we live in can be permeated with his love and goodness and presence through you, through me, through all of us who believe. And it becomes more of a joy when we realize just how much the Lord is with us and how much he needs us to be with him.